Welcome to a special episode of Table Talk. I'm your host, Jake Combs, and tonight we are taking the tools that we actually, we're taking the tools that we unboxed and looked at last weekend to actually put them to the test, comparing them against some of the old tools. Now, for a side-by-side comparison, I could not find whatever I did with my plastic remover, the Mouldline Remover, I mean. So we're not going to be able to show that one side by side, but already I really like the design of this one a lot better. So we're going to actually use this one tonight on this box of fell bats. Now, I've only opened this as far as removing the plastic, but as far as the contents inside, I've never actually held the sprue. So this is going to be the first time I'm actually working with the fell bats before, and just in time to start and to actually use them with the Night Wars release that just came out. So very excited for that. And these were literally the only model kits we were missing from being able to do it fully. So without further ado, let's get started. Now again, the tools themselves were sent to us by Games Workshop for the purpose of our videos, and we got the new knife, Mouldline Remover, drill, and superfine detail cutters. Now, I don't anticipate needing the drill on these three fell bats, but we will test it side by side on just the leftover sprue itself, just to see how they work there. And then we'll cut some similar pieces using both cutters side by side, as well as trim them with both the knives and go from there. All right. And then, as always, we will be assembling these bats, and I like to use the MaxiCure extra thick glue, and specifically this is made for Games U, which is a local shop that we frequent, that is the only place I've found that actually sells this glue whatsoever. And you know, if you actually look closely, you can see their logo listed across the front, as well as their phone number. So if you are in Arizona, personally, they are my favorite of the local shops, and so I highly recommend going to them if you are looking to either play a game or go in and pick up some supplies. All right, so the fell bat kit itself is a single sprue. Not a lot of overall pieces, but this is going to be great for us to get the job done. And then we have the bases themselves, which I'm not going to be attaching these to the bases because I do have specific basing style that I do for the Cursed City models, and these will be following that. So we're just going to set the bases aside and then turn to the first page. Now what I like to do is I like to cut out all of the pieces on a single page worth of instructions and then start building from there. Now, let's see. Okay, so there's 3 different bat heads, and you can basically mix and match which bat head you're putting on which piece. So like if you're doing multiple units of fell bats, you can have like 3 of the same posed bat, none without the same head. So definitely like that aspect, because I always feel that you should never have 2 models looking exactly the same. All right, so for pieces 11 and 12, we're going to use the older GW cutters that came actually with a start painting set that we were sent many years ago. All right. And then I always like to leave the pieces next to where they start on the book or the assembly instructions. All right. Then, as always, when cutting, make sure you have adult supervision if you are not one. And then always practice safety when cutting. All right, next piece is number 7. There it is. All right, and then the rest of the pieces on this page, we will be using the new cutters. So once I trim them all off, I will then switch to the actual hobby knife itself. All right, so next we need is number 10 and then number 9. Now already, even though the sprue pieces themselves are the same thickness on each of these pieces, this is already cutting much easier with much less force, having to like actually being squeezed, much less effort needed. So I really like that. And most likely at some point I will probably be dropping some of these pieces on the ground, just because that is my tendency, because I am a klutz. And anytime I do an assembly, I've yet to have an experience yet, but every time I end up cutting kits, I end up dropping some piece of it on the floor, and sometimes have to spend a few minutes trying to find it, because it is almost always one of the smallest pieces on the sprue. All right, so that's everything for the first page. So we're going to set that aside for now. So side by side, they both definitely have some pressure to them, so they open back up automatically. As far as comfortability, I definitely prefer the new super fine detail cutters. They have a much finer tip, so you can actually get into smaller crevices easier to cut off small details. So I really like that. But I also like the fact that it required a lot less hand strength to cut through the sprue than it did with the old ones. So already the new superfine detail cutter wins in my opinion as far as the side-by-side goes. So next we're going to take the same pieces that I used the old clippers on, and we're going to use the old knife to trim. All right, so overall the old cutters did a very clean job of cutting. And looking at it, there's really only one spot. Oh, nope, here's the other one. All right, and I do see a mold line there. So we're going to use the Mouldline Remover on that here in just a moment. And again, as always, when using a knife, you're practicing knife safety. Now, anyone that's paying attention can see that I am actually cutting with the knife in the wrong direction, just because I like having a lot finer control over it. But because of that, I have accidentally cut myself many times in the past. So it is always a good idea to practice safety. All right. So already, I like the handle a lot better. It fits in my hand a lot easier. It's a lot more stable. And as far as the quality of the cut, this is easily one of the cleanest blade, or not cleanest blades, but sharpest blades, given the cleanest cut that I've ever used. So out of the two side by side, the new knife definitely wins. And you may notice that the old knife that I was using is not even the Games Workshop one. And that's because I actually disliked the handle of that one so much that I went back to an old art bin and used a knife from that, which the blades for that one were much easier to actually get a hold of the exact sizing on to replace than the GW one was, at least locally for me. Now, as far as on film while doing the assembly, we're only going to be doing the first model, because once we do that one and discuss the merits of the tools, you guys don't need to sit and watch me just build 2 more models. Now, out of curiosity, how many of our viewers out there have been watching Warhammer Plus? And if you have, which show is your favorite that you've watched on there? Like me personally, most battle reports that I've watched, I haven't really enjoyed, but the format that they use on Warhammer Plus, I really like their style, just because of, like they show some of the maps and show some of the movements a lot easier than a lot of the other studios do. And so I think it translates really well. Now, as far as the actual shows go, it's really hard to pick a favorite, in my opinion. Hammer and Bolter has been fantastic. The Interrogator, I believe was the name. That one was really good. That one had a kind of more of a Necromunda vibe to it, but definitely was not Necromunda, and kind of gave an interesting look at the Inquisitors themselves. All right, so using the new Mouldline Remover, I really like how clean it is. Like it's got a little bit of an edge to it, so that way it actually trims it a lot more evenly instead of just kind of pushing it off like the other one seemed to. And there I go. I knew I was going to drop something. Didn't expect it to be the tool itself. All right. Just one more little bit here. So compared to the old Mouldline Remover, this one wins as well. All right, so next we're going to do the drill side by side. We're going to use the larger drill bit so it's going to be easier to see. Now looking at it, the newer kit actually has only 2 sizes, where the old kit had 3. So for options and assembly, the old one was definitely better. All right. So on the thicker side, or the thicker width, we use the old one, and then the thinner width, we're going to use the new. Now, I do like the handle overall a lot better. And like as far as like with turning, this little kind of grip right here works really well for pushing off with your thumbs. And looking at the 2 holes, I'm not sure how well you guys can see that, but looking at the 2 holes, the newer one is a much cleaner drill than the old one. Now, that part right there, maybe because I have used these bits hundreds of times already, and so they're probably a little dull, where these ones had never been used before and are not. So I'm not going to base my opinion on how clean the holes are, just on comfort of the hold, how easy it is to swap out the actual bits. So we're actually going to go ahead and do that next. Now with the old one, sometimes getting that bit in there, especially the bigger one, can become stuck. So I'd have to dismantle it to remove your bit. And I was even using the side made for the larger bit. Where the new drill, it looks like it doesn't really matter what size bit you're using, because it basically comes apart 4 different directions to loosen up and tighten back down. So across the board, other than eliminating 1 drill bit size, the new drill definitely wins. But that being said, you can always get new drill bits, and so the new tools themselves, hands down, new kit wins for sure. Definitely really liked them. The actually, I'm going to leave that out. The clippers are much better. Comfort much better. The handles, really like the way they fit in your hand. Overall, Very impressed with the new tools. Mouldline Remover is not one that I've always been a big fan of to begin with, but this one far exceeds. And as well, one thing I actually found looking at the Warhammer community page is this notched one, other than being for like kind of more fine cleanups, is actually made for the bases themselves. Let's go ahead and take one of these bases out and do that as intended. All right. So feeling the base, like I don't really feel anything out of place, but basically you fit it in and you can just spin it around and make sure that there's no excess plastic on the actual side, which actually there was a little bit that I didn't even see that I just trimmed off. So you get a much cleaner base for when you're doing your basing. So definitely like that aspect of it as well. So very cool. But that's it for tonight. I'm going to go ahead and, as soon as we end this video, I'm going to get the other two bats assembled, clipped, cleaned, and all that. So that way we'll be able to start painting on them this week and be able to get started properly on Nightwards from there. But that's it for tonight. Thank you guys as always for watching, and you have a great night.